Welcome again, guys. Sorry for the wait. I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is DVK. For those of you who are new to the stream, I'm a player, commentator, tournament organizer. I do a bunch of stuff here in the Kenyan Tekken community. And as you can see in the stream title, we have a very special guest here with us today. For our second anniversary, we've had Tekken 254 running for the past 2 years. So bit of a milestone there. Most of you guys know who this is already. E-League. She was a team captain and a champion of the E-League Tekken tournament last year. Got 13th at Evo this year, and obviously multiple other high placings in countless other tournaments. One of the best Tekken players in America, to put it quite simply. Janelle Carter, aka Cuddle Core. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for
for
taking.
having me.
So thanks for taking the time. Obviously, I want this to be more of like a conversation. Like I don't want it to be like this one-dimensional thing where I just ask you a question and you respond and we go on like that. Depending on what answer you give me, I might do a follow-up question or I might give you my own take on whatever you say. But I want it to feel like a conversation, if that makes sense. Obviously, I'm not going to take more of your time than I need to. I know you probably have some shit to do. Uh, but yeah,
No, you're fine. You're fine. I took time because I knew interviews can go for any set amount of time. It's fine. Don't worry. Take your time.
all right, perfect. I don't know if I can't see the chat. Hopefully, everyone can hear me on the chat. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead and get started with something simple. You've been playing Tekken for a while now. As far as I'm aware, your competitive journey started with Tag 2. Um, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, you nodded, so I'm guessing I got that right. But before even the competitive stuff, when did you first get into Tekken? Like, what was your first experience with the game?
Um, hmm. My first experience with Tekken was probably like at least 20 years ago. Because I was like 5 and I played with my dad all the time. But I remember specifically really getting into it when the PS2 was really new and Tekken Tag 1 had just come out in America on console in '01. Um, and so I came home from school. It was the
This is
last
a
day of
bit too
school,
much. We don't accept
and my
this.
dad had the
This is a
the new
Christian-friendly
PS2.
Discord.
Sorry, just give me. Sorry, I'm. This is really embarrassing. I forgot to mute the alert. Sorry, carry on. Um, you're talking about Tag 1. I'm really sorry. Just carry on.
Oh no, you're fine. But yeah, my dad he had Tag 1, and I didn't know it was the new Tekken. But after that, I fell in love with it. The game looked beautiful. I played with him all the time, and so I played every other Tekken after that because yeah, I grew up with it, and it was one of my favorite games. I was raised on it, so yeah.
Okay, nice. So obviously, you must have been playing the game for a couple of years. What drove you to finally start playing the game competitively, like going to tournaments and stuff like that? What is it that motivated you to start doing that?
Competing was my locals. I remember I befriended a group of young men who were were very aware of like locals and nearby, and I realized I really loved to play. I realized I was a competitive person,
Mm-hmm.
so I befriended them. They made me a part of their group. We all became really close friends, and they started bringing me to local tournaments with them. I started to place really well, getting like top 3 and like first place. Um, and then I became even more hungry. And it's funny because one of my friends and I we were talking and recently, and it's definitely true. When you see like improvement and progress and success, it makes you hungry. It gives you the drive to continue to improving
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
pushing your limits. Honestly, that's so. I think that's what happened.
That's pretty cool. Um, So obviously, as a woman, like getting becoming a part of the FGC, which is like full of testosterone, must have been a challenge when you first started out. So, what was your personal experience like in terms of settling in the community? Obviously, you said that you befriended a bunch of guys who knew who had information about locals and stuff. Did those people sort of help you settle in with everyone else, or was it harder than was it harder than you made it sound, basically?
Um, I think initially when I first got started, everybody was very welcoming. They're very warm. I was one of the fortunate ones in that sense because um, the people I befriended and even their friends who were playing Tekken as well, they were all very thoughtful, very helpful. And they saw me as an equal. They didn't treat me any different. We were all trying to get better. That was it. But the more exposure I did get, it's not like I didn't experience things where people were, well, men were sexist and chauvinistic when it came
Mm-hmm.
to seeing a woman play and things like that. But I always made sure I, anytime I asked players, even at the time when I was asking pro players for help, they never treated me any differently because I was a woman asking for help. Like I asked Lil Majin for help once when I was getting more accustomed to tag 2. And I said, "Hey, what are my character? What are some of Elisa's good moves?" He told me them. I used them, and it helped me. He didn't say, "Well, I don't know why you'd want to learn that." Or they treated me like equal. So I definitely did experience like sometimes feeling like people weren't taking me as seriously because I was a woman. But that was usually from people who weren't taking the game seriously, who had never gone to a tournament in their lives, and definitely couldn't understand mentally that a man and a woman are not different when it comes to brain power, and they're
Yeah,
no
yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was only so any sort of negative feelings you got. It was only from like people who are new to the scene or people who like never even played Tekken, really, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like specifically in the Tekken scene, I didn't experience as much of that. It was more so from the FGC as a whole. How they perceive women in general. But in Tekken, the community itself, I felt very welcomed. If I didn't, I don't think I'd even be competing
All right, that's
where I'm
cool.
at now.
That's really nice. That's actually good. So coming up as a player, you probably never had a shortage of like really good players to train with. Obviously, everyone knows how strong the American Tekken scene is, and even when you zoom into just Illinois, there's players like yourself, there's Mason, and there's all the 20Z boys, Shadow Junior, Linux, all these guys. So when you were coming up, did you have any sort of mentors that sort of helped you along your journey, and how important do you think mentorship is for newer players who want to sort of level up and get into competitive Tekken?
Hmm. Yeah, I think having mentors is so important. It's key to continuing to improve, I think. Um, when I was when I was getting better, I didn't really have a mentor. I just had training partners.
Hmm.
More so recently, I have mentors. I actually have mentors now
Okay.
because I benefit a lot from it. Players like NYC Fab and my training partners, who I also still consider mentors as well. Um, Joey Fury, Shadow 20Z. Um, Even like sometimes when I speak with JDCR, I look to him as a mentor as well. They're all people who have different types of traits in their gameplay and their game styles. And when they discuss certain things with me, they see certain things in gameplay that I might not see. It's
Hmm.
very beneficial and helpful to me to apply those things to my. And when I do, it's helped me improve so much. So I have at least 4 mentors who really always kind of make me aware of different things within the game that I might miss, and overall, it helps me with my mental, again, like my meta game in Tekken.
Hmm. So you basically you have this mindset of like any any of your competitive like Tekken friends, like basically you can learn something from everyone. Basically, that's the mindset you have. Is that basically what it is?
I truly believe so. I think it's also important to, with mentors, also having training partners, you have to have one. If you don't have one, you're not going to grow. You have. It's not. I'm not saying to have a rivalry. No, someone who will always push your limits and give you advice and who you see is improving and has the results. Which means that makes them credible as well. And Shadow for me is he is my most consistent training partner. I've had him for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and yeah, definitely having him as one, and he's always growing and always improving. He's definitely a top American player, and because of how he does, it helps and benefits me too. So our levels of success continue to climb because it's like we're pushing each other.
That's nice. Obviously, it must be easy with Shadow because you guys are both from Chicago. If I'm not getting that wrong.
Yeah, we're outside of it, like a little bit. Oh, he's a little closer. I'm 50 minutes from him, and I'm 45 minutes from Chicago. So technically, yes.
That's really important. That's really cool. Sorry. So I want to get your take on something that's sort of happened more recently in the Tekken scene. We've seen a number of high-level players emerge from all sorts of different regions. Obviously the biggest example is Arslan Ash coming out from Pakistan with the OU Gaming tournament last year, and now he's won Evo Japan in Evo. You have Abel Del Maestro, who broke out at TXT last year. You have Sora from Saudi Arabia, who broke out at IESF last year, and more recently, Ivoire Akon from Cote d'Ivoire, who you played against at Evo, I think. So he ran through Fergus and Jimmy J Chan before we finally took him down. Obviously, us as Africans were kind of salty about that, but it's all good. What's it been like as a competitor discovering and playing against all these new different styles?
It's been very enriching and enlightening, to be honest, because I remember I was telling somebody this, I forgot who, but at one point in time, I remember when it was very minimal international players. We only had like the Korean players, like maybe 2 or 3, like 6 years ago. We had like JDCR and Saint coming to everything over here and just playing us, and most of the time either winning or taking second or third. But, so we were kind of used to that. And overall, like it was very American based competition. And if you wanted any other kind of competition, you had to go outside the do that. But now it's like we can just go in our own backyard and you have all this international competition here because of how they're making the world tour. And like it creates incentive for people to compete, to show up, and things like that. So I've honestly loved the international competition, win or lose. Like I learn a lot from them. I form friendships. I form like partnerships, bonds, and I improve because of it as well. So it also proves something to me as a competitor that I'm still improving. That my style and the way I play is more than enough, and that I can only grow from there because like I'm not just falling apart when I go against international competition. I'm winning. I'm winning against them now too. So they're making us stronger, and I think that's pretty beneficial to me. Like, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah. So, does the prospect of discovering even more high-level players in other regions excite you as not just a player, but as a Tekken fan? Obviously, we have Cape Town Showdown coming up in South Africa next month. You've got players in South Africa. Some of us in Kenya are trying to get there for that tournament. We have a new competition called the African Esports Championship. There's going to be Tekken there. There hasn't been any exact date set, but I'm hearing word it's going to be in October. There's the prospect of finding even more like killers from other countries that haven't had the chance to shine. Does that excite you, not just as a player, but just as a fan of the game?
I mean, anytime we find any players that there are unknown killers, I think that's exciting. Only I only think that can help the scene. And it's not just the same people that or same region that people are, the best at it, right? Because there's more than just one region that does that. I think it makes the game more diverse in that way as well. It shows that Tekken in itself brings many different types of players. There's not just one type or one region of players that can be successful. I think I don't know. I never thought it was ever a bad thing. If anything, this is the only game to me that does that. That just brings out these unknown killers. People who've been
Yeah.
training forever just didn't get the opportunity or the exposure. So it excites me, and as a fan as well, I get really hype. It makes me so happy and proud to know that a game like Tekken can bring forth such unknown, well now more present talent, and I think it'll just continue to do that.
All right, nice. So bearing that in mind, obviously, we all know that not everyone has the sponsors to be able to travel all across the world for points, and some people have a harder time than others in like getting visas, for example. Um, so, would you welcome any sort of changes to the format in the Tekken World Tour to give um, sort of players in these lesser known regions more attention and more of a chance to qualify for the TWT finals? So if I can give you an example, like with Capcom Cup, they've got, if I'm not mistaken, something like top 26, and then the winners of regional qualifiers is North America, South America, Europe, Asia, all these different regions, and then the defending champion from the previous one. So obviously that gives um, a bit more of a chance for someone from like sort of every region to be represented in the final tournament. So, is that would you welcome something in that sense on the Tekken World Tour?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I definitely would. Because you're right, there are difficulties with getting visas and traveling, and not everyone has a sponsor, right? So, I mean, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't get the chance to have exposure and display their talent from where they're from, you know. And I completely agree. I think it should be like that, where each region or like area has like a specific representatives from it, or like maybe two or three representatives from that. Um, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think it's something that maybe the format they should adjust the format with, because that's hard.
Yeah.
You know, certain areas don't just have, their esports scenes aren't as developed as other
Mm-hmm.
places,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a problem in itself too. Like when you mentioned earlier, like players like Sora, who I'm sure maybe for players like him or players who came from where he did to travel, that must have been difficult, because you had to wait for your visa, you got to see if you're gonna get approved. See that, and that's really stressful. And
Yeah.
thinking if he didn't have a sponsor, even how much harder that would be. But we all know he's a talented player, and players like him in that same situation are super talented, but
Mm-hmm.
they need to be given the chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely think the format should be adjusted to be more sensitive to people in situations like that, for sure.
So do you have any specific idea? Because I remember in 2017 it was top five from North America, top five from Europe, top five from Asia. Would you wanna go back to something like that, or something more similar to Capcom Cup, where you have like say top 16 and then the winners from like each region, something like? Is there any sort of specific idea you have in that regard, or?
I think for like when you're talking about the Capcom Cup format, like a top 16, then someone specifically from each region, I think that could be very helpful to put more exposure for different regions. I think they should try that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might work better that way. Or even like having qualifiers for that in each like country, or certain countries that they pick have qualifiers for that, and then the top maybe three from each qualifier in those areas, they go play in the top 16
Mm-hmm.
or something. Something. I'm just kind of
So,
brainstorming.
sort of, yeah, just yeah. I think that's not too far off, but it sounds like something along those lines. I think would be a good idea, and it would be something will be appreciated by all these different players who can't sort of fly everywhere for points. You know what I mean?
Right,
Um,
because I'm like, 'cause, not everybody can do that, and I get it. I get it so much. Like that's it's money. It's esports. It's tough.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
FGC, hard.
Yeah, for sure. So we're gonna move on to a slightly more sour topic, but I feel like you're one of the best people who can sort of give me a take on what I'm about to ask you. But yeah, so unfortunately, we've seen some bad stories of like sexual harassment and harassment of other forms come out in the FGC. Obviously, it's been this whole Me Too movement that's been going on for the last few years, but now to see it in the FGC as well is a bit sobering for all of us who like to see sort of players like you and other players compete at the highest level. We've had Guilty, the well-known Street Fighter player, announce that she's leaving the FGC. We've had people like Yehozi and Voivode Rose coming out with their own stories and stuff like that. So, um, what do you think are steps that can be taken towards um, making women feel safe in the FGC or in FGC events, and as a result, encouraging more women to become a part of the FGC?
Well, with all the events that have been going on, and all the tragedies that people have expressed because of sexual harassment and molestation, things like that, I feel like one of the hardest things that for people in those positions, like women specifically, is they don't feel like they're heard when they do speak up. So they're like crucified for speaking up because it's making quote unquote one of their players, like one of the FGC's favorite players, look badder, or this mentality from like men, like, oh well, we can't believe her, or like, because she's stating this opinion, she gets shunned for it. And this woman, if she's telling the truth, and she's still getting crucified and shunned for it. It makes women afraid because, like, a woman speaking about something that happened to her, something that happens to many of us in the community, and many women in this community, and the fear she has to speak up stops her. It could stop her from competing, and it could stop her from opening up. Because the FGC, the parts of the FGC are not welcoming. They don't listen to women because it's a woman speaking about a problem. They trivialize it, and that's not the way it should be. I think ways to improve that for sure is, I think there should be programs created. Literally, FGC specifically made programs that allow women who are victims of like sexual harassment and things like that, for them to be able to approach, like to come to these organizations so that they can like talk to people that specialize in cases like that. And lawyers, I think, should be present on these teams because, like, that does become a legal matter, and people getting violated, and this is supposed to be, they say that the FGC is inclusive. Yeah, okay, to a point, but there's still a lot of trials that women are put through just to compete. And things that they have to deal with. And even if they want to have a mentor, women sometimes are even skeptical of getting that because of other intentions that men might have, even though she just... See, there's so many different, like, I definitely feel, there's so many challenges and trials that women have to deal with when they just solely want to compete. And there has to be that filter between it. And that filter should be an organization where women can go to them or approach an organization that specializes in helping victims or women that feel uncomfortable, or anything like that. That's truly how I feel, so that they can feel more comfortable.
I don't think any such programs exist for any esports at all. So
nope,
I think
not really.
I think doing that for esports in general and not just the FGC would go a long way towards not just helping women in the FGC, but women in other sort of areas as well, if it's FPS games or whatever it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so last question. Gonna move away from that and move on to a bit of a happier topic, the age-old question. Who have you got as your Tekken 7 top 5?
Globally?
Not players, characters in the game.
My Tekken 7 top 5 for characters. Okay, let me put out my hand. Steve. Oh my God.
Yeah, everyone agrees with that. Yeah.
Steve, Geese, Devil Jin. Steve, Geese, Devil Jin, Kazumi. And this last one kind of. I'd either. Give me a second, because this last one is gonna.
I feel like that last one should be easy. Jin?
Because no,
Really?
I don't think Jin. I think he's like
Really?
top 10, but not top 5.
Not Jin? Why not Jin?
I feel like he's strong, but there's like only a set amount of moves that he has that like are really effective. 404 is really good, but I feel like if your opponent has a character with really good movement, they can kind of just outspace him and deal with that pressure. As long as you're not pressing at range 0.5 or 1 and you're stepping and you check duck after you sidestep right, I don't feel like Jin is as threatening because all like as compared to like Devil Jin. Still a very good character, but to me he's just top 5. But he's definitely top 10.
So you said Steve, Geese, Devil Jin, Kazumi. Who's number 5?
Akuma.
Akuma. Everyone's been rating Akuma recently because of his insane damage, I guess. But I feel
His
like
comeback factor.
yeah, but I feel like all his best moves are really unsafe. Like if you know how to deal with them, he's not
Right.
he's not as big of a threat. But I guess a lot of people have been saying Akuma, so I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is though, like you don't even see him that much. But like when you do, yeah, I just for me personally, I feel like top 5 solely off of counter hit damage, mix ups at the wall, pressure when he has meter, down 3, being able to convert down 3 into a combo, just like Geese and his down jab, like those kinds of tools, like being able to interrupt characters from doing their offense with things like that. That is oppressive in itself in first to 2. So I just think about that, how that kind of plays a role in how he could be seen as top 5, and it's messed up because I have 2 2D characters in top 5, and never in my life would I have thought that. But seeing results, that's the only reason why I say that.
I mean, I'm a Jin main, and obviously I hear people crying about Jin all the time. So you're one of the few people who actually hasn't put Jin in the top 5, which is interesting to me. But yeah, so yeah, that's basically it. Thank you again for taking the time. It's been a real pleasure. I'm sure all the people watching from our community here should have learned quite a bit. If anyone didn't manage to catch the stream, I'll be putting it up on YouTube anyway. But yeah, again, thanks a lot for taking the time. Keep doing your thing. Obviously, as I said before, one of the best players in Africa, not Africa, sorry, America, period. So yeah, and a role model for female fighting game players everywhere and fighting game players in general. So yeah, keep doing your thing.
Thank you so much.
Right, so that was Cuddle Core. We're gonna be joined the Spag in a bit. So stick around and we'll be right back.